Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's Das Barajsi from the Bhujangi Podcast, and I just like to thank the Sangat first of all for their immense support from the last two episodes that I've posted. I've received a lot of feedback. I've made amendments on it, and I'm glad that the Sangat found it useful. I've had messages from everyone across the world: England, Italy, Canada, North America, everywhere. I'm really glad for the support that I've got. And today we have another episode with by Harpreet Singh Ji with us today. Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. And we'll just talk briefly about them, give them an introduction, and then we'll go into the topics of Naam Simran, their importance, and other subtopics as well. So yeah, just get started with like who you are firstly.
My name's Harpreet Singh. I'm actually from East London.
Hanji.
40 years old, so you can see the white beards coming through now. And I'm actually a teacher, secondary teacher. I've been doing it for about 16, 17 years. Focus being on RE, philosophy, and law.
Hanji.
And funnily enough, my path to Sikhi, I would say, has not been a straight trajectory at all.
Hanji.
Our family was Sajdari, so
Hanji.
I'll just go straight in.
Hanji.
And I wouldn't fall in the category of, oh, you had a real orthodox upbringing.
Yeah.
So I was Monna to the age of 19. I went to university, and there was a Sikh society there. And then I started to look into Sikhi at that point, and the history really drew me into Sikhi. The martial aspect, certainly, and then also the philosophical aspect for me was really important. So as a young person, I would ask philosophical questions. Why are we here? What is the point of life? That's not probably a question that typically most youngsters would ask. I was asking that to myself, I reckon, from the age of about
Hanji.
6 or 7. You know, why am I here? What's the point of all this? What's God? Is there God? Why am I going to school? So that inquiring mind, I would say, is a natural thing that came to me. And that's led me slowly, after inquiring and inquiring and inquiring, to search for truth. I started to discover Dunyavi truth, so truths of the world, maths, physics, did maths and physics A-level. And I just felt, something's missing. And then I started to come across Sikhi in the form of Gurbani Kirtan and the historical side. And that's where I started to get some answers to my questions. So from the age of 19, I kept my gas, and then I went through a real rough patch. Because you've got to understand, from my family's perspective, it's not normal to keep your gas.
Yeah.
And, and there were reasonable questions, not critical of the family. They were actually, in the end, very supportive. But they asked the question, are you sure about this? Because they have to do their due diligence.
Hanji.
They have to ensure that, you're not being groomed.
Yeah.
Someone's not telling you, do this, and you'll get this. So they asked me, are you sure about this? And I did start to shake. And I can remember the turning point in my life. I'm going to share that today. I was working at B&Q, do a part-time job.
Hanji.
And I was coming back from university first year. And I come out the station. I look left, I look right, there was nothing there. Then I looked left, and then I heard a horn. I looked right, there's a double-decker bus. And it was here. And I got struck by the bus, full blast. So if you look from physics perspective, that's 20 tons. All that pressure going onto my face at point of contact. And when the bus struck me, I fell back, as you can imagine, and I hit the floor. I maintained consciousness throughout the whole thing. And there was a moment there when I was lying on the floor, and the thought came to my head, what have you actually done with your life? And that's when I had this feeling that we need to do something called Naam Japana. And Naam was missing from my life. And they shut the road off at that point, because as soon as you're hit by a bus, the worst is assumed.
Yeah.
So I was lying down, and I had a crowd form around me, and then I can remember very clearly the police did a cordon on both sides, you know, the blue tape.
Hanji.
And then the ambulance came, and they were first quite shocked that, you know, this guy, he's still conscious after being hit by a bus. So the whole screen had caved in at that point. Then they, you know, when they strap you up,
Yeah.
they strapped up every limb. They didn't take any risk because they thought, you know, he's been struck at high force with an immense amount of force.
Yeah.
And that's, if we can't see the injury, it's probably internalized. So he's
Yeah.
got internal bleeding or something of that nature. Then they took me to the hospital, and as they took me in, the person, the consultant who was there, or the person that was working there, he first went past me. He was like, "Where's that person who's been hit by a bus?" And then the lady who was with me from the ambulance, she's like, "It's him." And he's like, "No, that's a mistake. He looks too intact to be hit by a bus." Then they took me into a room, and then they started doing bone tests on me. You know, when they just squeeze your bones,
Hanji.
and no bone was broken. They couldn't find a cut. Then, reluctantly, they took all the splints off me, and they said, "Okay, do you think you could get up?" They asked me all those questions. Were you conscious?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I was absolutely conscious. Everything, I can remember everything. And then they go, "Okay, stand up." I stood up, and then they started calling people. They're like, "Come here, look at this," and he's been hit by a bus, and I didn't lose a drop of blood. And then he goes, "Can you move?" I started jumping up and down, and showing that I could do squats. I'm fine. And he was just shocked. He goes, in all these years of working at A&E, he's never seen anything like that, where someone's been struck by a moving bus, 20 tons, and they literally just got up and walked away. And for me, that was the turning point. I was like, if there was a message, that's the message. So from then, I got more into Naam Simran, more into Sikh history, and so on and so on and so on. So in my mid-20s, I then went over to Punjab,
Hanji.
and I met some beautiful Mahapurush and spent time with them. And then when I got back, got married, and I'm father of 3 children, and they're all at school, and so on and so on. So you can ask me about that if you want a little bit later.
I got one question. So I know through just meeting you that you took Amrit from Buddha Dal.
Yeah.
If you can just talk about like how you took Amrit from Buddha Dal, how was the experience?
It was something which, if I was to describe it, I felt like I'd gone back to the time of the original Amrit Sanjar. So let's look at locality. We were looking at 300 Saal Hazur Sahib.
Yeah.
So at the Bunga where Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj wrote Siri Sarbul Guru Granth Sahib Ji,
Hanji.
that's where we took Amrit. And I can remember the Amritdhari Singhs, the Panj Pyare, were dressed in blue bana, just as they would have been all those years ago
Hanji.
in Anandpur Sahib. And they were those that had served at least 12 years in the Dal. So they were Farlatari Amritdhari. So just imagine the kala, the spiritual strength they had. And that's where I took Amrit there. And it's not been, even since then, it's not been straight trajectories. I've had my ups and downs.
Hanji.
And that's one of the messages I want to put out in this podcast, that there's no linear graph that's going to, that's not how life works. You're going to have a few good years, you might have a bad year. But you should never be disheartened. And here we are today. I'm still Amritdhari. Maradi Kirpana Chardi, everything's fine. Enjoying life, enjoying breathing. Every day after that accident, it's a bonus.
Hanji.
Every day. Every breath.
Everywhere.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be dead at that point.
Hanji.
So that's why now I just try to make the most of what I can with the breaths that I have left in this body.
Yeah.
So we'll get onto that.
Yeah.
What happens
I think even I relate to that. Like when I was younger, like my mom tells me, I was quite sick when I was like 2 or 3 years old. I had meningitis.
Wow.
So it's those that don't know, I briefly know about it. It's like when you get high fever, you get spots all over your body, and mine was so bad that they like the room with my emergency room was full of doctors, and they literally told my parents like they can't do anything, like bring in lost family members, do your prayers, whatever. And then my Nana ji in India, they did das and everything. And then luckily with Majis Kirpa, I got better and I was fine. And then just me, when I think about that now, it's like that's happened, and then that's probably a reason why as well. So that's quite important as well. So like when I look back on that, I'm like, who knows? Like, that could have been like my ending point. I've just passed away there, gone.
But
there.
are you scared of dying?
No.
I'll be hit by a bus. Am I scared of dying? No, that's the reset. You
see, it is the reset.
When what's the worst thing? Generally speaking, if you go and ask, if you did a survey, you went outside, and you turn around and you said to people, "What's the worst thing?" They'll be like, "I don't want to die." It's a bonus for me. It's a bonus for you, and that's freedom. Bella maran kabul.
Especially we're taking Amrit as well.
Yeah, you're giving your head.
You're giving a seat. It's like people, I think nowadays what we've normalized
that includes your stresses.
Yeah.
As well.
I think nowadays as well, like when you talk about Amrit and Jar, people just think about it as like, you just drink Amrit. That's not the it. The main thing is that you're submitting yourself, you're submitting your seats to the Guru, and from then onwards, you're following the path of Gursikhi, you're following the Guru's hukum, and whatever happens is under their guidance, and whatever you do is under their guidance. As we know, like Miri Piri, like
absolutely.
When you take Amrit, you wear the Panch Kakar, you have your Karpan on you, you have a duty to follow. Like we know, like obviously you're a teacher, I'm a student, we have our day-to-day lives, but our Gursikhi Jeevan is as much important, if not even more important.
Bella Naam, yeah.
Bella Naam.
Because Naam's Sat, isn't it? Sat the Naam. We say Sat the Naam. So let's just take a simple example. We're sitting here, we're sitting at this table, right? Today, this is a table. It's made from wood. 10, 15 years ago, these particles were part of a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah? Today, they are a table. In 10 years' time, this might end up in the skip. In 100 years' time, it might end up in landfill. In 1,000 years' time, it's probably going to be disintegrating, or it could be burnt, or anything could happen to it. But in its form, right now, it's not absolute truth. This is a temporal truth. This is a temporary truth. So's your body. So's everything around you. It's all temporary. So, Sikhi, from terms of taking Amrit, the Guru Maharaj's message is to join with Satanam Vaheguru. Sat is that which doesn't change. And the only thing that doesn't change is Vaheguru. Hence, Satanam Vaheguru. Satanam Vaheguru. And that is the job of a Gursikh, is to japa naam is your first and foremost profession.
Anji.
It's not a luxurious thing we do. We do it as part of our commitment to the Guru. And why? Because it's Sat. Everything else is nitya, it's temporary. And that's Satyam, that's Sat. That doesn't change. And that takes us, if we're talking about Naam Simran, that's why Naam Simran is Shresht, is so important. Yeah. Because it's your connection to the truth that doesn't change. So you as an individual, what does that mean? Well, if I look now, this is my hand, this is my body. I'm not the hand, am I? No. So if you chop my hand off, Harpreet would still be here, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He would, wouldn't he? So this is not me. This is not the real me. This is part of me. And if we take, okay then, you're not the body. If we go for the mind's just thoughts. So the next question is, who's watching the thoughts? The body subject to change? The mind is subject to change. They're not sat, they're nityam. They're temporary. It's what's behind that, the witnesser, the one that does not partake, but just witnesses. That's sat. And that is, in modern terms, that's Vaheguru inside you. That bit of you which is permanent, which is in the form of Sat, truth, Chit, consciousness, Anand, bliss. That's who you really are. Naam Simran is the journey back to who you really are. And that is what Maharaj is saying. Pai parapata manaka dehuriya. Govinda milan ki e teri bariya. So you've been given this body and this human intellect to reconnect back to the point of timelessness which exists within you. How do you do it? Mil Sad Sangat. Paj Kevala Naam and Jap Naam. That's why if we're talking why is Naam Simran important, it's
Yeah.
because the Guru says that this is the most important thing, because it's the real you. And everything else around you is temporal and existent. Some people will then say, well, why don't you just go and sit there and do Simran then all day? No. Do you know what Maharaj said to the Khalsa? You have one world in Sat. That's 1 foot in Sat and the other one in the world. So how does that look? That's Mala in one hand and Shastra in the other hand.
Just like Babaji there, like
there
you have
you
a
go.
Gurj with them,
Yeah.
and then they'll have in the other hand, in that picture, it's not the full picture. They have a mala in the other hand.
So Sat, from Satnam becomes Vivek, Vivek Buddhi, sharp intellect, which can then recognize what's right and what's wrong. You can only recognize what's right and what's wrong if your mind is absolutely clear and sharp. And Naam Simran helps you do that. Then you can administer Dharam in the form of a Shastra. If there's no Naam, Azulum ho janda. This becomes a crime.
Yeah.
The Shastra is then used to rule over people and to oppress people. But when there's Satnam, then it's used to free those in need. So the job of the Khalsa is to do that. Is to jap Naam and then apply that in reality in this temporal existence.
Hum akali sabke wali.
Hamara
Hamara panth nyara hai. So yeah, I think that's some really important, like how important Naam Simran is. I think even practically thinking for the Sangat that's watching, and then like maybe they're new into the journey, you can do Naam Simran whenever you can. Whenever, like me going to school, from school, like I'll just be reciting Naam again and again and again and again as I'm going home, as I'm leaving. You can do it whenever you want. And I think if we start with these small things, like doing it when you're doing something that you don't need your all attention on, like if you're walking somewhere, just saying Satnam Vaheguru, Satnam Vaheguru, you can build that bond, and slowly, slowly it can help with the Gursikhi Jivan if you're just starting out. I think that's a very important and a very easy step that you can take to make that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, if I think of the Mahapurush, so when I did go to Punjab when I was about 23, I think, 22, 23, I went, that wasn't the first time I went, but I went there for a number of months. I stayed in Nandapur Sahib, so I'm going to link it back to what you're saying with Naam.
Yeah.
And I met a Mahapurush there, near Logar Killa, called Baba Gyanna Singh. He went eventually to live to the age of 115. So I met him when he was about 96. And so this is not something I've read somewhere. So I witnessed.
You experienced it firsthand.
This is first-hand experience. Baba Gyanna Singh would get up at 3 a.m. Then he would go to the Nalka to have an Ishnaan. And you're talking Anandpur Sahib in the summer, scorpions, snakes and everything.
Yeah.
Like free. This is standard. Yeah, so dodge all them, have an Ishnaan. And then they would come back and they would do Nitnem. And they would jap Naam. They'd have 4-hour Jonkari. Within that Jonkari, I would see that they've gone to, now I'm in a conscious state, they would go into a state where almost they look like they're sleeping.
Yeah.
So you can tell when someone's breathing, can't you? When someone's asleep, you get that really deep breath, don't you? Then they'll do that deep breath. First day it happened, I was like, Babaji's falling asleep while I was doing a bath.
Sleeping, yeah.
So I was like, okay, it's all right, you know, non-judgmental and that's all good, happens. But then, like 5 seconds later, the Gurbani comes out and it's off by heart and should. And it goes on for 3 hours and it doesn't move. And I'm like, wow, this is the stuff people have been talking about is happening in front of me. So when I spent time with them, it was only 2 or 3 weeks, it had a profound effect on my life. So you know when we said Sad Sangat, that's a Sad. What is Sad? Sadhana, the one who practices. So Sad Sangat doesn't mean people that dress like me, like saying, you know, I'm a Khalsa. It's somebody who does sadhana of what? Of Naam. If you spend time with them, it rubs off on you. 100% it rubs off on you. It's like when you go to the gym, do you want to train with someone who's weaker than you or stronger than you? You want to
Stronger, obviously.
Why? Why would you want to train with someone stronger?
Because they're stronger than you. They have more experience. They know what they're doing.
So you're going to gain more, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because of their experience and their practice of going to the gym. Simran is very similar. If you have sangat of someone who's practiced a lot and has good discipline, those qualities will eventually rub off on you and then you can embrace them in your life. So going back to what you were saying, you know, you can do Simran when you're walking around, 100%. If you look at your day, there's a lot of activities which I would describe as no-mind activities. So a no-mind activity doesn't require thought. So let's just, from when you get up, you brush your teeth. Yeah? You get ready. Sorry, actually, you have a shower. Yeah?
Ishnan.
Yeah, right? Brush your teeth, have a ishnan, whatever you got to do, in whatever order you prefer. Yeah? And then you get ready. All those things, you don't have to think, now I'm folding my bed. Now this pillow shall go here. You don't think that, do you? You don't think left, right, up, down. You don't think left arm, right? No, what happens? Those no-mind activities should be replaced with Naam Japana. Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru. Swas. Then do you know what? There's a lot of benefits to that. First, you're not thinking negatively. Because a lot of the time in my life, when I thought negative thoughts, is when I'm getting ready in the morning. I'm like, that person said that to me. This person said this to me. You're really charging yourself up for, basically a toxic day of thinking toxic things. But what you're going to do, you're going to replace that, because those no-mind activities have to occur, because you're a human being and you have to do those things.
Anji.
You replace them with Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru. Walking's a brilliant one. Wahi.
I do it with my steps.
Wahi, Guru, Wahi, Guru. Do you know what you're doing? Your mind, it's not going through these negative thought cycles. You're actually creating gaps for it. And that, when your thoughts start to reduce, then Bhakti starts. When your thoughts are getting under, then your real Bhakti starts then. If your mind's all over the place, that's got to be your first project as a Gursikh. Let's get this mind under control.
Yeah, I think even going off that, I think that's very important. And even going off with like the morning routine, I've had some people questioning of like why the Nityanam's in a specific order as well.
Yeah. The Nityanam was prescribed by Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj.
Anji.
So your first answer to them would be it's hukam of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj. We talked about Satyam and Nitya.
Yeah.
Sat the Naam.
Anji.
Sat. Gurbani is Sat. It's predominantly a discussion of the timeless. It's a celebration of the timeless. The reason we're doing it every day, it doesn't matter what's happening in your life, Nityanam should continue.
Anji.
You're going to school that day, Nityanam. Someone's passed away that day, Nityanam. You're getting married that day, Nityanam. You're going on holiday that day, Nityanam. I've made this mistake of making those excuses. That's due to my lack of understanding what Nityanam was.
I remember when I went to Spain in October in the holidays, our flight was like, we had to leave at like 4 o'clock. So what I did was go up at 12, did my Nityanam and everything. I think it was Dussehra that day as well.
Yeah.
So the Nityanam, Arti, everything that I could do before I went, I did it before my flight.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't be like, oh, I've got a flight to catch. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, I can do it. I'll just wake up an hour too earlier.
So when I was your age, I'll be honest, transparent. I'll just be lazy. I'll just like, I'm doing it.
It happens. I think like everyone has those up and downs as well.
Everyone's journey is their journey, but you have to be, when you reflect on yourself, you have to be honest.
Anji.
If you're not going to be honest with yourself, how are you going to improve? You can't evaluate your performance if you're not accepting the data you're producing. So a lot of my life, I've been very lapsed on that side of things. It's only as I've got older, I think you get wiser, but I feel I've got wiser. I'm like, no, you're supposed to like every single day, no matter what, because that is your link to Satnam, and your link to Satnam goes back before you was this person in this life.
Yeah,
it goes back eons, and it shall continue for eons. So that's a relationship of all relationships. Then everything else comes. So my message to the youth is, I've been complacent. Yeah, I've like, nah, don't need to do it. I strongly suggest you reconsider and think about this.
I think that's another thing that like the youth and people in the middle age face. They reserve Siki for like a later stage in their life. You're like work, parai karni, everything like that, and then they leave it like it's a later on stage. I think that's very important. that we realize, like, first of all, you don't know when, how much Marj is written for you. You
Yeah.
could like pass within the next 5 minutes. So I think it's very important that you realize.
At least that'll be on the
Sikhis-
live stream. So
Yeah.
No, it'll be on. Everyone will see it. if that
Yeah. Yeah. So the point is, like, Sikhi is not a thing where you choose it on a specific time frame. It's something. It's like a journey that takes years and years to go throughout. And the earlier you realize that, the better it is.
It's Sikhya to learn.
Hanji.
So you're constantly, if you're learning, you should be progressing. So if you're progressing, that means you should be upskilling. Sikhi goes on the back burner mostly when you think, oh, I've got it. It's all good.
Yeah.
This is what I need to do. It's never like that.
It's never like that.
Either you're learning Gurbani, so you're learning Gurmukhi. If you've learned how to read Gurmukhi, then you're learning Arth. Then you're going to learn the Sakhi attached to the Arth. Then you're going to learn Atmic meanings, the deeper meanings of Gurbani. Yeah?
Hanji.
Then you're going to meditate on them. Then you might start discussing them with other people. That's never ending. From a bodily point of view, Guru Gobind Singh Ji advocates martial training for every Sikh. So you're always going to be training some form, either going to the gym, some sort of martial arts, and you should be upskilling. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing the same routine for the next 10 years. You should be getting stronger. You should be increasing your knowledge in Gurbani. And then there's so many arts in there. There's Ra Kirtan. Yeah, Kirtan itself, that's a lifetime's worth of work if you want to go down there.
Exactly.
If you don't want to do that, there's calligraphy.
Hanji.
Go into there. If you don't want to do that, do horse riding. So try to build your hobbies that are encouraging you to build a better relationship with your guru. Try to link it together a bit.
I think
helps.
that's what it was for me as well. Like, I've always been a creative person, and then I think during lockdown, and then I think just after lockdown, like, I saw some sings on Instagram, their photography of like Jordan Mille, Nagar Kirtan and stuff like that, and that really inspired me because that was like the point where I was trying to get into photography, and then that really caught my eye, and then I started in general I started going Gurdwara more often, and then taking pictures, Shastra Prakash, Forge in general, and I've kind of like fostered that the Sikhi aspect of it with like the career aspect. What I want to do
That's
is like
fantastic.
I'm trying to go into media right now,
Yeah.
and for my school project I'm doing a podcast based in Sikhi.
Yeah, that's actually, for the youth, that's important. So you're using your career, and it's almost like a parallel thing that's going on.
Yeah.
You're upskilling Sikhi, and as you're upskilling professionally, they're kind of complementing each other.
Yeah.
So for me, that would be my teaching. So as I'm becoming a better teacher, it means if I was to deliver a lecture on Sikhi-based subject, it would benefit that.
Yeah.
So we can think like that now. In the society we live in, we've got a choice to our career paths. When we choose them, ask yourself this question: how will my career complement my Sikhi?
That's very important as well.
That's important, yeah.
Very, very
But
important.
the example you gave is fantastic, because you found a new way.
Yeah.
So 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been a way.
Yeah.
But now, it's a way.
I think that's very important as well. Like, what my next question was going to be is, like, how do you have these worldly balances between, like, your Sikhi Jivan, worldly school, work? And think if we find this balance of, like, channeling them both at the same time.
That would
think that's
depend on your
perfect.
age range.
Yeah, it depends
So
on the age range
It
as well.
depends on
Yeah.
your age range. So if you're anything if you're in the educational range, you should be trying your absolute best to get the highest grades. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, more than 15 languages. That's not somebody who doesn't take academia seriously. It's Guruji, who knew so many languages, could do kirtan in rag. There's a lot of intellectualism there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of kala as well, spiritual power. No? Then could horse ride, master of warfare. Look at in Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj's Darbar, how much knowledge was there.
The poetry in the Gurbani.
Yeah. So from that perspective alone, if you're in the age range of, let's just say, up to about 23, 24, you could be studying even longer, you should be absolutely mastering your art of studying and Sikhi. And they complement each other. To study, what do you need? Discipline, concentration, analytical mind. To understand Gurbani, what do you need? You need gur prasad, definitely, and also discipline, concentration, and analytical mind. So it complements each other. Because I do see sometimes, you know, I go to a Gurdwara Sahib and some Singhs, they're dressed up, ready for Chardi Kala, we're going to go to a program. When you ask them about their studies, they start pausing.
Nah, man.
Nah, you know, I'm not sure. And I'm like, that's not the way. Anything a Singh touches should turn to gold. That's a metaphor for what? Anything we put our hand to, we're going to add value to it. So if we pick up a Shastar, we're going to be the best. Or we're going to at least try to be the best. If we go to the gym, we're going to push ourselves the most we can. If we go to school, we're going to be the best we can be as well. Because if you're going to be lazy, being lethargic, it's a habit which will impact other elements of your life.
Yeah.
It just spreads.
It's like a virus that will just infect everything that you do.
It will infect everything you do.
Yeah.
Alas, we call it, है ना?
Hanji.
Punjabi jehdi alsi a infection angar hundi hai. So it will
Hanji.
go from you not doing your bed
Yeah.
to you not doing your nitnem to you not doing well at school to you not doing everything that you need to do. So whenever alsi turns up, you've got to give it the boot.
Yeah. I think even me personally, like last year, I was doing my GCSEs, and around, I think, February, I literally could not be asked for school. Like, I had zero motivation at all. I was like, Deki Jo, I can't be asked. And then towards May, like during my exams is when I took Amrit. During my GCSEs,
Yeah.
Babaji came, I saw the opportunity for taking Amrit, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take it then. And since then, I've realized, like, me with my academics, I've been focused on it, like me doing media now. I've been doing so many things, and it's because of me taking Amrit, and I've felt that focus in me being like, I've got this to do, I need to do it properly.
You've got purpose.
Yeah, I've got purpose.
You've got purpose. Mileage giving and you're going ahead and doing it. And
Yeah.
you've found a way now to balance what you need to do in the world with what you need to do in terms of Siki.
Yeah.
So that's striking a balance. That's the foot in Sad and the foot in the world. They got to go together. You don't, you're gonna have parents that they start thinking, oh, these Singhs, my son's a Singh now, he ain't gonna do nothing.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that my parents had as
my
well.
My dad said it to me straight.
Yeah, because even when I was like to them, like, thing is, I told my mom, like, I think the night before, I was like, in the morning, I want to take Amrit.
Oh, wow.
And then she was like to me, like, just like a safeguarding way that you said that your parents speak to you as well. She's like, is anyone forcing you to take it?
Yeah, yeah.
Is anyone speaking to you like that? I was like, no, that's just me, myself.
And we shouldn't show our parents any sort of, we shouldn't be questioning their approach.
Yeah.
Their job is to ensure that you're safe and that you're not being manipulated into a situation.
Because it does happen.
Yeah, so they have every right to question you. They've invested time, money, and emotion into you. So if they're going to question you, please don't take offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should show patience and understand their concern. Look past the question in its literal sense and see what are they trying to ask me. When I look at what my dad was asking me, he's basically saying, is someone making you do this? Yeah? Are you sure about the implications this is going to have on your work life? Because racism is a problem. It was then.
Yeah, back then. Yeah. It was.
So he's actually trying to look out for me because he doesn't want his son to have the journey he had when he got here, when racism was rife.
Yeah.
So really, he's trying to safeguard me, but I'm seeing that as an attack on my Siki.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to take a step back.
That's what I felt in the moment, and then I soon realised, and then I realised why they were saying it from their perspective as well. But yeah, I think making these steps, like taking Amrit, for example, was a big step for me. Like, I've heard it many times before, like, taking Amrit is like your first step into your Sikhi. And for me, it was the first step for me, like, actually, like, going forward in my career as well, because I was going to move to a new school. And then me, in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna have different Sangat around me. I don't know how that'll affect me. And so for me, my mindset when I took Amrit was, it's as like a safeguarding shield for me.
Yeah.
So like whenever, like, because we live in Kali Yuga,
yeah.
It's the dark age.
You can't cross the line.
You're inside it. You can't be like, nah, we're not affected by it. You are affected by it to a certain extent, but it's the matter of you being that having that shield of Sikhi around you, being like, your limits. Like if we have a friend of yours that's like not on the right track, or someone approaches you, someone asks you or tells you to do things, you know in your mind, be like, that's not what we're meant to do.
Yeah.
That's not our purpose.
Yeah. So you can see in terms of Umrat and Jar, from the perspective of just having what I'd say the bottom line, it's clear what the bottom line is. You're not supposed to do A, B, and C, and that does save you, because if you're in a bad friend circle, it could get really bad really quick.
Yeah.
Do you know? So I fully agree with what you say. I totally subscribe to that. But if we go back to, it came from what, you know, the parents asking the question, which we now, I think is totally legit for them to ask.
Yeah.
Where it does go wrong is when they're like, cut your hair. So if a kid's trying to grow their hair and they're saying, no, you're not growing it, you should cut your hair. That's where I'd ask parents, you know, maybe you need to go and do a little bit of research about what you're asking your child to do. So we have to be balanced in our approach.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say, and this is something, it's probably slightly off topic, but you know, when we were growing up, we made hundreds of mistakes. And what did our parents do? They forgive you, don't they?
Yeah.
They forgive you. But you know, when your parents make a mistake, we remember and we don't want to forgive them. So my message to youngsters is, you screwed up 1,000 times, but when they screwed up 5, you put it on them. So maybe we need to just calm that down a little bit as well. And do you know how I'm realising that? As a parent.
As a parent.
Yeah, when my 13-year-old daughter, she remembers this little thing that I messed up on 2 months ago. I'm like, what about the 45,000 things that I've done in between then? Nah. So I'm now training them about forgiveness and kimma. And that's important, because you don't want to be, you want to, on the majority of the times, you want to maintain a very good, healthy family relationship as a Sikh. I know there's some instances where it's not possible, because sometimes families can be highly dysfunctional. Yeah. But on the whole, you want to maintain a good, healthy family relationship. So, like, my dad still, he's Saj Dari, no issues, living at home, not a problem. But don't give him an excuse. What do I mean by that? It goes back to the educational thing you were saying earlier. If you're going to flunk school, mess it up, and then say you're an amazing Sikh, you've given your parents an excuse to criticise you. Anji. If they're criticising you in the roop you are, they're criticising your guru. So have some self-pride and some self-worth, and don't allow them the opportunity to have that criticism. Raise your standards. Anji. That's my message to youngsters.
I think that's very important. Like, when we briefly had a discussion prior to the podcast, you mentioned, like, for parents and Bhujangis that want to take Amrit, if they're doing well in the school and everything, the parents wouldn't even really question them taking Amrit, because then they'll know that whatever they're doing right now is completely fine and they won't be affected by it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to instill a confidence in your parents as well. You can't just say, I'm going to take Amrit and I'm still not going to study. I'm saying do both. And in all fairness, if you're average intelligence, you can get really high grades just by studying a little bit. Yeah. You don't have to study 10 hours a day. Yeah. Have some discipline. And remember, your nitnem, your habits of sitting there and concentrating, they go hand in hand. If you're good at if you've got discipline in your simran and your nitnem, it will flow into your studies. Studying will be easier for you. You'll have more focus. So that all works. So that's the 20. We've dealt now with what, up to 21. That's then the next bit I found really hard for myself is when you go into the world of work, and then all of a sudden you have a mortgage. Then you have all these costs. Yeah. And somehow you're still trying to hold on for dear life. Do you know what keeps you? It's your Amrit. It's those bottom lines. That's what helps you in the end. Because you might go to work and people don't even know what a Sikh is. Yeah. They don't even know what a Sikh is. And then you're going to sit, and it's good to integrate, but you still have to maintain the Satnam. You still have to maintain the Naam Simran. And I feel there's bits in my between 25 and 35 where I let myself down in that sense. Yeah. And if I could go back, what I'd make difference is I'd probably make sure in the same way, you know, when you make an effort to meet someone, you prioritize, don't it? I should have prioritized meeting Sangat after my work hours. I just wouldn't do it. I'd say I'm too tired.
Yeah, I think that's a very big thing.
Too tired, can't do it. Too tired, can't do it.
It's really
1
important.
week's gone, 2 weeks gone, a year's gone, 2 years gone, 3 years, you're 30. It's like that. That's what happens. It speeds up, you know. After 25, it's like it's your birthday really quickly every year. Why? Because the volume of stuff you're doing in a day is higher.
Yeah.
Because you've got more responsibilities, you've got less time to reflect and so on. So I'd say to 25 to 35, you're going to have to actively, generally speaking, make the effort to link up with your Sangat and do Simran and everything.
I think
Then
what
when
helps
kids
with
come,
yeah,
you naturally, generally speaking, you naturally become more dharmic because you start thinking about the wider implication of what you're doing.
and trying to raise them up.
Yeah,
to the
you're
best
like,
of
oh,
their
I need to
ability.
raise them as a Sikh. So you see a lot of sad, starry families come and, you know, and they're bringing their kids to a Gurdwara because it's like, no, we've got to help our kids out.
Yeah, I think even going back to like how you can get like caught up with work, then that's very important that you have Sangat outside your work hours as well.
100%.
Like me, I'm in a diverse school, and there's not many Sikh. I think there's like a handful, like 2 or 3. And if I like, it's lovely to meet everyone. I think it's very important, but you should also have that balance as well. So like, I attend all the Jordan that I can possibly can. Just having that Sangat is very important because you can get off track and you can lose your touch and siki by just not having Sangat as well. With Sangat, like I've written a post on this before as well. Like brotherhood, it's very, very important.
So you've got brotherhood, sisterhood, and then also so those things are what I'd say they're clearly visible.
Yeah,
But there's also stuff in the background where people haven't realized. There's accountability.
yeah,
Accountability. You're accountable amongst Sangat. If you're sitting in your room, who are you accountable to?
yourself.
Is only a vidla, a rare person, who's accountable. They've got so much Naam Abhyas that they've got a direct connection, which we all have, but they're able to embrace and nurture that connection with the Waheguru so much that they can be by themselves like a lighthouse in the darkness. They're very rare. That's your Baba Gyana Singh, Baba Joginder Singh. But for the rest of us, we need Sangat. And that's the reality of it. But in my 25 to 35, I had that bit of ego. You know, like, I don't need no one, I'll be fine. But it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah,
Once you start going more into your Naam Abhyas, once your mind does stop, then you're going to start, you know, it says in Mara says in Anand Sahib, Eva Sansar Deke Har Ka Roop Hai, Har Roop Nadri Aaya. You'll start to see Waheguru glowing out of all of existence. So out of everything you look at, you're going to start seeing the prakash of Waheguru.
I think that
Fir
it's very
Chardi Glaya.
important.
Then it's all Chardi Gla all the way. Then wherever you go, Samaste ka Jyot hai. That Jyot is everywhere. It doesn't go kart and abad, it doesn't go up or down. That Jyot is just throughout the whole of existence.
I think another topic that I wanted to go through was the risks of young kids in schools as well. Like as you're a teacher as well,
Oh,
do you think there's any challenges that they face?
oh, they've got loads of challenges.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, you know, when you're older, you're like, oh, we had it so hard, and the kids have got it so easy. I don't think like. I think the opposite. I think being a young person now is so difficult. I think it's the other way around. We had it so much better than you. Do you know why? We could make a mistake and no one will record it on their phone. You could go to school, you'll fall flat on your face, and people will laugh one day, they'd laugh another day, finished. Now, it gets recorded and published. Just having the fact that what you can do is going to get recorded and published creates a hidden anxiety at the back of the minds of young people.
Yeah.
That's not fair. That's not fair at all. Because as you're young, you're supposed to make mistakes. And you learn from those mistakes, and you reevaluate yourself, and you rebuild yourself. What if you're constantly reminded of something you did 5 years ago? You know, you went out with someone you shouldn't have gone. Anything like that can happen when you're young. Silly things happen, and it's constantly getting thrown in your face. So the pressure on young people now, I would say, is unprecedented. And I think technology, as much as it's had a lot of good things, especially social media for me, is something that the kids need to be aware of. Because here, look, family time, right? Let's look at the dynamics of family time. So when I was at school, so internet came out when I was in year 10. That's so funny. I must sound like a dinosaur, don't I? So internet came out in year 10. So before then, you would be at school with your mates, for 5 or 6 hours, you'd probably walk home with them, then you would come home, and then you're with your family.
Yeah.
So the parenting influence would be there from about 3 all the way to about 8, 9 o'clock. You would also have a chance to reflect on your day. So the mental pressure would be less. I'm not talking about dysfunctional families. I'm making general observations here. So don't say, yeah, well, some people have got it a lot hard. I'm not trying to get at that. I'm just talking the general pattern of what's been going on, right? So I apologize if you feel offended. So now they've got that phone. They come home. It carries on. Social pressure and anxiety carries on. In fact, it even gets worse because there's no teachers to regulate the behaviour of people that act in a disregarding manner. Then they're going to sleep stressed and waking. They're looking at the screen. They're even checking it in the middle of the night. Some of these lot.
Or just staying up.
Yeah, or just staying up. Then back to school.
Back in the cycle.
Why do you think there's so much issues with teenage mental health? We've bombarded them. We've taken their freedom to think away. And the algorithms on the social medias, they're sending them in certain directions to promote products.
100%.
Yeah? And people just think, oh no, Harpreet, it's just a product. It's just a product. Well, you have to make that customer first.
So going from like a product, I'll just take up vapes for example. Like I'll be so honest. Like going a couple years back, you see vapes, they'll be huge, like looking like a machine. But currently, the last 3 years, it's like a little small bright yellow highlighter thing.
So who are they for?
Fun names like Ice,
who they're making them for?
Ice.
Who they're making them for?
Kids. It's appealing to them visually and hearing the name as well.
Yeah. So it's for kids. So they made that custom. Do you know what they do? You've got the product at the end, then they'll make the customer. How do they do that? They use these algorithms to then make them think, oh, I want this thing. This thing is fulfilling. And this thing is going to give me something. And then they're in this notorious cycle. So for me, young people have got it really hard. Really, really hard. You're just not left to it anymore. You're just not left to be yourself. Yeah, I feel for you guys.
Yeah, I think going on from that, I think social media has a lot of its benefits, but has its dangers as well. So you should keep it in a balance where you're not so overwhelmed with it.
Parents should control it a bit more as well. After 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, give me your phone.
But I think with that is...
And you'll probably rebel. You're probably like, no, I don't agree with that.
Now coming it from...
People in the studio throwing things at me. What are you talking about, old granddad?
If you come at it from our perspective, it'll be like, yeah, but we need our phone.
You need it. I need my fix.
We need it. But I think it's just about like kids themselves having that balance.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you, yeah?
Yeah.
We're different generation. How old are you?
17.
I'm 40, right? Okay. So, as a good Sikh, yeah, after 8, 9 o'clock, what are you saying? Do you need it? No, you don't, do you?
You don't.
Do your Kirtan Swela. Do Waheguru, and fall asleep doing Waheguru. Wake up. Do you need it at that point? No. Maybe for an alarm, yeah? And then you carry on. I'm just saying... If you go to sleep thinking about, if you're scrolling, your mind's not going to switch off, is it? Realistically.
Yeah.
As a young person, you know what I mean? So you should go give yourself, I'm telling you, give yourself a break. Not from social media. I'm having a cut off, 9, 10 o'clock. It's got to go. And be yourself. Be with your guru.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that as well. Like, with me personally, I'm always on my devices or like my work. Like now, I work in media. All my stuff's on my MacBook. Like everything I do is on my computer. I barely write. Like even if I write notes on my phone,
but that's different because that's a learning device.
But the thing with that is, like, I'll go into that. Social media is attached to everything. Like I've got my Instagram login on my MacBook. If I want to open up a different tab, I have Instagram there. But I think it's about that control and like just distract yourself from it. Like right now, my phone's not on do not disturb. I just got a message.
Yeah.
So just having that pause or like even muting or even like sometimes what I do is I just delete Instagram or whatever. I'll be like, I'll focus on my work, do what I'm doing. And then I'll just log in back. Just continue.
Brilliant. No, that's fantastic. I'm saying for your own mental health.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important.
The people behind it are way smarter than me and you.
Yeah.
Okay. We talk about grooming, right?
Yeah.
You've got an AI software developed by psychologists and the top software developers versus a 17-year-old mind. Need I say more?
Yeah, it's true.
It's the imbalance of power. Total imbalance of power.
But yeah, I think we had a lovely discussion, talking about those topics, and most importantly, being Naam Simran.
Yeah.
And I hope the Sangha does really enjoy this episode as well, because, you know, with the last 2 episodes, talked about Sikh Ityas, the struggles that Nihang Singhs face, the stigma that they get from Sangat in the UK. I thought that's very important that we delve into a really important subject of Naam Simran, which is the most important one. So I hope Sangat really enjoyed this one, and we'll have more episodes coming soon. So just with that, I'd like to say,
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.